Hello, my fellow minor league nerds, and welcome to our latest special episode. This episode is about one of the biggest fights in baseball history that you've probably never heard about. This episode covers the fight between the Los Angeles Angels and the Hollywood Stars of the Pacific Coast League on Sunday, August 2nd, 1953. There have been great sports rivalries over the years. Yankees-Red Sox, Dodgers-Giants, Celtics-Lakers, and Bears-Packers. But there's a lesser-known one between the Los Angeles Angels and the Hollywood Stars, and that's what we're going to talk about today. As Gene Mauch, who played for the Angels from 1954 to 1956, said, "We were never too far away from fighting. Never. It was spirited." Before the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles from Brooklyn before the start of the 1958 season, and the Angels became an American League expansion franchise for the 1961 season, the city was dominated by the Pacific Coast League. We've covered two of those teams already, the Los Angeles Angels and the Vernon Tigers, in separate episodes, so definitely check them out if you haven't already. But we'll give a little background on each of them, as well as the other Los Angeles teams, who we plan on doing separate videos about at some point as well. The Angels, or Lulus as they were originally called, began play in 1903, the same year the Pacific Coast League began. They ran away with the league pennant that first season by winning 133 out of 211 games, finishing 27 and a half games up on second place Sacramento. They won 3 more pennants in that first decade, in 1905, 1907, and 1908. In 1909, they were joined in the Los Angeles area by the Vernon Tigers, who played in the small industrial enclave located about 9 miles south of downtown Los Angeles. The Tigers' home ballpark was pretty small, and they really only drew well because Vernon was one of the 2 communities in Los Angeles County at the time that were not dry. The other was Venice, where the Tigers played in 1913 and 1914. The Tigers were never really able to build a fan base of their own, even after winning back-to-back PCL titles in 1919 and 1920. They played most of their home games at Washington Park, home of the Angels, before moving there permanently in July 1920. In August 1921, the Angels were purchased by William Wrigley Jr., and he began looking to build a brand new ballpark, which would eventually be known as Wrigley Field, located in south central Los Angeles. He made it clear that the Tigers would not be welcome to play there. This led to the Vernon team being sold to San Francisco interests, who immediately announced that they would be moving the team up there, renaming them the Mission Bells, later becoming the Mission Reds before the start of the 1928 season, and once again becoming second fiddle in a town, this time behind the San Francisco Seals. The Tigers moving out of Los Angeles presented an opportunity for the Salt Lake Bees, who were owned by Bill Lane, to move closer to the Pacific Coast where the other 7 teams of the league were located. The Bees had been members of the Pacific Coast League since 1915. The franchise began in 1909 along with the Vernon Tigers and played as the Sacramento Sacs, relocating to San Francisco for the last 7 weeks of the 1914 season, where they played as the Mission Wolves. They would then move to the Utah Capitol for the 1915 season. The Bees were never really a success on the field or with fans, typically hovering about the 500 mark, with their attendance never exceeding 160,000. The other PCL owners were not too happy with the high travel costs to Salt Lake only to play in front of small crowds. Lane took advantage of the opening in Los Angeles. He had developed a good friendship with William Wrigley, with Wrigley offering to share his brand new ballpark with Lane's team beginning in 1926. Lane took him up on the offer and relocated his team to Southern California, adopting the name the Hollywood Stars. Informally, they were called the Sheiks after Hollywood High School's athletic teams. The friendship between Lane and Wrigley soured over money. The Chicago Cubs, who were also owned by William Wrigley, had introduced Ladies' Day at Cubs Park. It allowed female fans to enter the park free of charge on certain days of the week. The Angels adopted this policy in 1925, with Wrigley taking it even further in 1928, declaring that every day was Ladies' Day for both the Angels and Stars games. The other PCL owners were not happy with this move, as they would all lose revenue while playing in the league's biggest market. The loudest voice of all was Bill Lanes, who canceled Ladies' Day at Stars games. Eventually, Wrigley agreed to pay the other clubs their share of the lost revenue for some games and moved Ladies' Day to just weekday games starting in 1929. But the damage to their friendship was already done, with it only deteriorating further over the next several years. Hollywood's fortunes began to improve with them winning their first pennant in 1929 and then again in 1930 when they defeated the Angels 4-1 in the championship series. After that, Hollywood's fortunes declined, with them winning no more pennants at Wrigley Field. Like all baseball teams, both were affected by the Depression, with the Stars taking a worse hit as the Angels were still able to get quality players due to their relationship with the Cubs. They won the 1933 pennant and repeated in 1934 with a team that has been declared the best minor league team in history when they won both halves of a split season, finishing with an overall record of 137-50. In 1935, the Stars finished in last place and were informed that the Angels were going to raise their rent to $10,000 in 1936. Bill Lane decided to leave Los Angeles and head south to San Diego, where his team was rechristened the San Diego Padres. For the 1936 season, Los Angeles had only one team for the first time since 1908. It stayed that way for the 1937 season as well, with the city getting a second team once again following that season. The Mission Reds, who remember began as the Vernon Tigers in 1909, received permission from the PCL to relocate back to Southern California, being allowed to play at Wrigley Field with the stipulation that it would only be for one season, with them finding their own ballpark before the start of the 1939 season. And with this relocation, this is really where our story begins. The team would be named the Hollywood Stars, nicknamed the Twinks by the press. Shortly after arriving to Los Angeles, they were sold to a group led by Bob Cobb, owner of the Brown Derby restaurant. Shortly after the purchase, Cobb announced that the team would indeed have its own ballpark, Gilmore Field, which was actually located in the Hollywood area of Los Angeles. By having their own ballpark, the Second Stars team would finally have its own identity. The rivalry between the Stars and the Angels would become very heated over the years, with it frequently being called the Heavenly Series. Early on, the rivalry was dominated by the Angels, who won every season series by a wide margin except for one. Their relationship with the Cubs continued to provide them with great players, while the Stars did not have that luxury. They were affiliated with the New York Giants for one season in 1941, and then played unaffiliated until 1945 when they teamed up with the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were consistently a second division team during that period. In 1947, Los Angeles won the PCL pennant and championship when they defeated the Oakland Oaks in 5 games. After that season, they would begin a downfall that saw them finish in last place in 1949. At the same time, the Stars would begin the greatest period of their history. For the 1949 season, the Stars entered into a working agreement with Brooklyn, winning their first pennant and league championship by taking down the Padres in 6, as the Dodgers provided many great players. They would also win the pennant in 1952, with the PCL not holding playoffs that season. They even began to dominate the Angels in the Heavenly Series. The fans of the two teams did not like each other. Whenever they played, the stands in both parks would be overflowing with supporters, many of whom were just looking for trouble. But it wasn't just the fans of the two teams that didn't get along. The players didn't like each other much either. There were many incidents taking place on the field over the years, with the rivalry and dislike boiling over on Sunday, August 2nd, 1953. Fireworks broke out during the first game of a doubleheader at Gilmore Field in front of a crowd of 10,408. They were the last 2 games of an 8-game series that drew a venue record of 63,017, breaking the previous record of 62,311 set in 1947. It capped a week of several near brawls between the teams, with one taking place during Friday's game after Angels first baseman Fred Richards slid hard into Stars' Gene Handley at third on a triple, emptying both benches. Richards and Handley were both ejected from the game. Frank Kelleher of the Stars had 6 straight hits against the Angels, including a game-winning 2-out pinch hit on Friday and a game-winning home run on Saturday night. As Los Angeles Times sports writer Al Wolf put it, this made Kelleher a marked man on Sunday. When the teams gathered to meet for the doubleheader on Sunday, the Stars were 5 games ahead of the Seattle Rainiers and 14 in front of the third-place Angels. Stars manager Bobby Gragan decided to start the hot Kelleher, who singled in a run in the first inning, then hitting a triple in the 4th inning after dodging a couple of inside pitches from Angels starter Joe Hatton. He later scored on a squeeze play that gave the Stars a 2-0 lead. When Kelleher came up to bat in the 6th inning, Hatton decided he'd had enough of him and hit him in the back with a curveball, which led to Kelleher to charge the mound, which was very contrary to his gentle nature and reputation, which led to him being nicknamed Mousy by his Hollywood teammates. Kelleher was a large man. When he landed a punch to Hatton's chest, it knocked him back several feet. Angels first baseman Fred Richards came over to assist Hatton, taking a roundhouse from Kelleher, ending up on the ground as well. Both benches cleared, with more punches being thrown. When the umpires were able to regain control after about 10 minutes, Kelleher was of course ejected, the first ejection of his 17-year career. Hatton, meanwhile, was allowed to remain in the game, much to the objection of Bobby Gragan, as according to the home plate umpire, his only crime was pitching inside. Ted Beard was sent in to run for Kelleher and promptly stole second on the very next pitch. On the following pitch, he attempted to steal third, sliding in with his spikes flying towards third baseman Murray Franklin, hero for the 1949 PCL champion Stars, with some sources saying it was his Angels debut. Beard nailed him in the arm, elbow, and chest. Franklin, of course, didn't appreciate the slide and came up swinging, with both benches emptying once again. Kelleher even stormed the field from the clubhouse. The field turned into a virtual boxing ring, with at least 6 different fights going on, with players from each team pounding those on the other indiscriminately. The umpires, who were trying to break up the fights, took punches as well, with home plate umpire C.C. Carlucci being knocked down 3 different times. Angels pitcher Cal McLish was about to be blindsided by Hollywood's 6'4" shortstop Jack Phillips. McLish's teammate, outfielder Dick Smith, leveled Phillips with a perfectly timed rolling block that lifted Phillips to his feet, saving McLish from injury. Chuck Stevens of the Stars grabbed the first opponent he could find, not realizing until it was too late that he had corralled Angels' Bobby Usher, whose arms were as big as Stevens' legs. Usher looked at Stevens and said, "Do you really want to fight?" When Stevens replied that he would rather not, the two stood to the side. The umpire's main fear was that fans would join in the brawl, which lasted some 30 minutes. Los Angeles Police Chief William Parker was at home watching the game on television and had the same fear, later saying, "I'm not particularly concerned about a few players slugging each other, but I don't want a bunch of spectators agitated and starting a riot." He dispatched Deputy Chief Arthur Homan with 50 police officers to Gilmore Field to bring order. Players suffered cuts, bruises, and black eyes. Beard, Franklin, Gene Handley, and Fred Richards were all ejected. Homan warned players and managers that any individual involved in a further incident would be arrested and charged with disturbing the peace. He even had officers sit in the dugout, with only 9 players from each team being allowed out of the clubhouse at a time. Joe Hatton was asked if he wanted to press charges against Frank Kelleher, declining the offer. All of that did the trick, as there were no more incidents for the rest of the game, which the Stars won 4-1, nor the second game, which the Angels took 5-3. PCL president Pance Rowland was in attendance for the melee and fined Kelleher $100, about $1,140 today. Hollywood's Beard and Gene Handley, as well as Los Angeles's Franklin and Richards, were fined $50 apiece, roughly $570 today. The Stars went on to capture their second straight PCL pennant that season, again with no playoffs being held, their third in 5 years, and they never actually relinquished first place after mid-July. In 1953, the brawl would become as famous as it was brutal, thanks to photographs published in Life magazine. After the game, Stars catcher Eddie Malone, who was playing in his 15th of 16th seasons, dragged his weary bones home, only to discover that his children had watched the whole thing on television. His daughter Gail asked him if he was in the fight, to which he answered, "Oh no, honey, I would never do that." The next morning he was woken from his slumber when he felt a tiny hand shake him. She was holding the newspaper, which had a picture of him throwing a punch during the brawl. "Daddy," she said, "you always told us to tell the truth." Well, my fellow minor league nerds, that'll do it for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, because I definitely enjoyed researching it. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast platform of your choice to be notified whenever a new episode is uploaded. You can also give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter. Until next time, stay safe and never stop supporting minor league baseball and never stop learning about minor league baseball history.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Join me as I interview people just like you and players, coaches, GMs on the path that led you to become a fan of the sport.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTomaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Eric from the great state of Kansas.
This is Johnny from the New Orleans Baby Cakes Memorial Museum.
And we are the Earn Fun Average podcast,
where we talk to a variety of guests about their love of baseball and have fun doing it.
America, lower your standards.
Average is what we do best.
This is Patrick
and Corey
of BaseballMapper.com, and we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball, so get on the site and find a team near you today.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series, and in every episode I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at @PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
Learn more about Curved Brim Media at curvedbrimmedia.com.